Ein Ches, top of the page. Okay, so we'll continue with what seems to be the last section of the Sefer. And remember, in this last chapter, chapter 10, the author is going through some general ways in which we can connect to the Spheros, not only in daily living, which has been more or less the theme throughout the whole part of the book, but even more specifically, how we connect to the Spheros through the different stages, phases of the day. So we've gone through sleep, dream state, waking up, learning Torah throughout the night, davening Shachris, and now we're up to what's the next phase, which is after the morning prayers. So the thing that brings us up to Yotzei Misham. Yotzei Misham. Okay. Remember, we were talking about using prayer, which is corresponding to Malchus, and the pei, the mouth, in order to elevate into the Spheros, using Malchus as a kind of a venue or a gateway into the Spheros, in order to elevate himself and the world up to Tiferes, the source of Torah, so that then the Shefa shall come down through that tree of life, back through himself and into the world. So he becomes like the tree through which the blessing is dispensed from the spiritual realm into the physical realm. And he's going up there and picking those fruits and bringing them down for the world. So the next state would be the state of Torah. And that's what he's going to discuss here. Yotzei Misham. Yotzei Misham. He goes out from there. From where? From that gate of Malchus. I think we mentioned that Malchus is referred to Ta'ara. Ta'ara is a shar. So Yotzei Misham. He goes from there, meaning goes out from there, goes out from the shul. And we said the shul is where prayer takes place. That corresponds to Malchus, meaning that's the place from which the Shefa is brought down into the world. So now he goes out from there. Oila b'soid HaTorah. He now elevates himself with the mystery of Torah. Why Oila? He goes up. Yotzei Misham, he goes out from there and up into the sod of the Torah. The reason is because Tefillah, the Beit Knesset, is a place of Tefillah, and that's Malchus, that's the lowest of the Spheros. That's like the Ima Tata, the lower mother. We spoke about how a person is surrounded by two women, right? His wife and the Torah, or his wife and the Shechina. But there's actually an elevated dimension of Shechina, which is above that, and that's actually Malchus and Bina. Tiferes and Bina, where Bina is also M. So that Torah actually reaches to a higher place than that of prayer. Prayer goes into Shemaim, through the Shar Shemaim, through Malchus, which is the Tara, which is the Shar, and it goes in there and it affects what it affects, moving in through the Spheros. Its effect moving into the Spheros. But Torah, insofar as connected to Tiferes, and Tiferes is the son of Bina, and Bina, the M Tikra, Bina is like an M, it's a mother, so that Torah actually reaches to a higher place than prayer itself. Of course, you cannot not pray, and prayer is an important thing. But the koyach of Torah is even higher than that of prayer. Istaka baraisa bara alma. Kadosh Baruch Hu looked into the Torah and he created the world. So that Torah is actually a source for creation. Whereas Tefillah is a purpose for creation. For example, Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and until Adam came to pray for rain, nothing grew from the earth. After Adam prayed, then rain came, and things which were created were brought into fruition. But you see that Torah is a source for creation, and prayer is the purpose for creation. So by prayer, one is actually fulfilling the purpose of creation, having creation be turned back towards its source. But the source is in Torah. And therefore, first a person prays, and then a person goes into an even higher level, which is limited Torah itself. So Torah is the way of maintaining the world. Imlo brisi yom v'layla hukei shamayim v'aretz lo samti. If it weren't for my covenant, my bris, which is the Torah, then Hukei Shemayim V'Aretz Lo Samti. All of the rules that govern creation would not be in existence. So that Torah has the power of creation. The purpose of creation is to have, therefore, that creation turned back to its creator in prayer. But the source is actually in Torah. So Yotze Misham, a person would then depart from that lower realm of Malchus, and Ole, and be elevated now, even higher, Basod Torah. Umiskashir ba Basod Midas Hayom. And he connects to the Torah in the mystery which is associated with the essence of the quality of day. And day is chesed. Like we say, Torah's chesed al l'shoina. So Torah's chesed. Torah is an union of chesed. And therefore the time for learning the time for learning Torah is primarily during the day. You're actually not allowed to learn Torah shebichtav at night. The written Torah is not allowed to be read and learned at night. You can learn the written. Huh? Yeah, you cannot. You can learn Torah shebichtav together with commentaries, but just to read the Torah, right? Why? Because the Torah, the midah of Torah is chesed, and chesed is prevalent specifically in the day, and therefore Torah has to be learned specifically, right, by day. Night, that's Torah shebichtav. A person can learn, Torah Shebaal Peh. A person can learn Torah Shebaal Peh by night. Why? Because Torah Shebaal Peh is the elucidation of the Torah Shebichtav. You're following the terms? Yeah. The oral Torah is the elucidation of the written Torah, and therefore a person is allowed to illuminate and elucidate the Torah through the Torah Shebaal Peh. That's the oral Torah at night when things are less clear and need elucidation. Therefore, right, Torah Shebichtav is done specifically a day, which is the time of the light, which is the time of the chesed, and Torah Shebaal Peh, that's Torah Shebichtav, and Torah Shebaal Peh is to be done at night. Are you going to say something?
What is Tav?
What is what?
Tav.
What do you mean?
Torah
Torah Shebichtav. That's Torah that is Katav. It's written.
Katav. Okay.
Yes, like the word Kotev, Ketiva.
And now
Peh.
Oral.
Yeah, oral Torah, yeah.
So basically, I can't read the Chumash at night if I'm just reading the Chumash.
That's right.
But I could read Talmud.
Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. No, is that only Shnai Mikra just reading? The Mishnah Berurah brings a person really shouldn't do that. A person really shouldn't do that. The one exception would be Tehillim, even though Tehillim is Torah. Even though Tehillim is the way Torah Shebichtav, it's part of the written Torah. Still, a person is allowed to read Tehillim. Other forms of Torah Shebichtav, which are written, strictly speaking, Torah Shebichtav is referring to the Chumash, the 5 books of Moses. But still, that was extended to other forms of written Torah as well, in the scriptures. A person is not supposed to really read any of the scriptures without the commentaries, without making it some type of a learning experience. And the exception is Tehillim. But in any case, umisnai kol hayom, and then a person should conduct himself according to the Torah and the chesed, the midah of chesed that's generated into the world through chesed all day long, ad shosa mincha, until mincha. The truth is, many people often view it the other way around. They kind of view tefillah as being like chesed, and Torah being din. Why? Because they think that like Torah is something that you have to kind of like put yourself to the grindstone. The self-control and the self-discipline you need in order to learn or to have your mind trained on a thought. Yeah. But Torah, tefillah, they think is kind of more fluid, more expansive in terms of chesed. But it's really the other way around. Being engaged in Torah is an act of chesed. Like I said, Torah's chesed al hashayna. He's actually involved in the power of the source of creation. And therefore, when he's bringing that power of the source of creation into fruition by learning Torah, he's actually sustaining the bria, sustaining the creation. And that's a tremendous act of chesed. It's like a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yeah? Like it says, if it weren't for my covenant, meaning if it weren't for the fact that my people are involved in the covenant of Torah, right, then Hu Keshemayim Va'aretz Lo Samti. If people are engaged in Torah study night and day, then the forces behind the sustaining of creation would not exist, and the world would go back to Tohu V'ohu. Like we signed, for example, in Kabbalah Torah, Yom HaShishi, V'Yechulo Shemayim V'Haaretz V'Chol Tzvaim. And it was on the sixth day that God created all of the heavens and the earth and so forth and so on. What's Yom HaShishi? That the world was created on condition. If the Jewish people will receive the Torah on the appointed day, which is the sixth day of Sivan, Mutav. Wonderful, everything will be fine. If not, everything goes back and reverts to Tohu V'ohu, a state of desolation. So you see that the Torah and being engaged in the Torah is actually the greatest hesed that you could possibly do, because it is sustaining all of creation. Clearly, when you give charity or money or food or help somebody, you're helping sustain that person. So when you're learning Torah and therefore sustaining the world, you have no greater chesed than that. Whereas tefillah is viewed as being less like that. It's true that tefillah is involved in opening up the gates of shefa and things like that. But it's about grappling with dinim, judgments. Should it be given or should it not? And if it's given, to what extent? And if not, until when? So tefillah is really grappling. Yeah? That's why it's called tefillah, lihitpatel. Right? Like Leah says, I forget exactly the lashon, but pitulei niftalti. I don't remember exactly the lashon there, but the point is, I was grappling with God, Leah says, until He gave me a son, and she called him Naphtali because she grappled with God. Yeah, so that really, in essence, Torah is chesed, and tefillah is more about kind of din. And therefore, when it is daytime, and that is the time when the light of the sun comes into the world and regenerates all of the powers of growth in the world, a person should be engaged in learning Torah, so that the power of Torah is also pervading the world and simultaneously involved in maintaining on a spiritual level the sustenance of the world. And if a person can't learn all day long, and most people are not fortunate enough to do that, yeah, then a person should at least learn just after davening. Just after davening, a person should learn. So Malchus is like that field, and the Torah would be the seed which he seeds the field so that the produce would be given to and benefit the rest of the world. And as long as a person can learn, he should do so. But even if he can't learn, at least something after davening, he should learn. And should go on this way, if he's able to learn all day long, until mincha. What is mincha? What happens at mincha? Shemiskashe b'gvura. At that time, he connects himself with gvura. What's gvura? Right? The meter of gvura, which is dinim. And the reason for this is, mincha is from midday on. So you have 6 hours of morning and 6 hours of afternoon. 12 hours to the day. Correct? 12 hours to the day, 12 hours to the night. The first 6 are chesed, that's morning. The second 6 hours, that's gvura, that's afternoon. So that the time for chesed is until midday, which is why, for example, korbanos were offered until the 6th hour, that's midday. And prayer can be prayed until the 6th hour. Shacharis can be prayed until the 6th hour, but no later. Why? Because shacharis is chesed. The truth is, l'chatchila, a person's really supposed to pray at daybreak. Well, at sunrise, that is, which is the source, which is the source for the custom of davening, what we call nets.
So at 4:45 a.m.
Whenever sunrise is, actually. When actually sunrise is. I said the break of day, but that really means dawn. I meant to say sunrise, yeah? At sunrise. When is that now? 6:15, something like that? Yeah. So as the ball of the sun kind of rises above the horizon and the light of the sun starts to enter into the darkness of the world, so that's a time when a person should ideally be praying. But that time goes on throughout the morning, right? Which continues the midah of chesed throughout the morning. But the pinnacle, the quintessential moment of the crescendo of chesed into the world is when the sun rises above the horizon, right? Which basically signals the end of din, of the night, the completion of the growing chesed of dawn onward, right? And then from that point on, the day really starts to wane. I mean, it waxes. It's true. I mean, it gets stronger during the day. Yeah, but Chesed, the pinnacle of Chesed is at that sunrise, and then as the sun rises, moves towards the middle of the day, it leaves Chesed and moves more and more to the direction of Din. So that from the afternoon on, we have Din. Why? Because the midah of Chesed, that is the quality of day, starts to diminish from midday on. The diminishing of the day, corresponding to the reduction of the midah of Chesed, corresponds to the growth of Gevurah, right? Which has its kind of pinnacle when? At sunset. And therefore, the person is engaged in Torah learning for the whole morning, for actually the whole day, because the whole day is really the day of Chesed, is really the quality of Chesed. But that Chesed starts to wane from midday on. Okay, you can daven Shachris, which corresponds to Chesed, which was instituted by Avram Avinu, right? Chesed until midday. I just started to say, ideally it should be done at sunrise. L'chatchila, it should be done by the 4th hour. But if it isn't done by the 4th hour of the day, it can still be done until midday, but no longer. Why? Because from midday on, the quality of Chesed is no longer pervasive enough for a person to connect to it through the tefillah of Shachris, which was instituted by Avram, whose midah was Chesed. Rather, that becomes the time to daven Mincha, which was instituted by Yitzchak. Okay? And the attribute is going to be Gevurah.
Now, with Chesed, is that also the time you should put on tefillin? Is that when it's going to be strongest, or does it not matter when you put on tefillin?
Tefillin should be put on all day long.
So every time you daven?
Well, I mean, really, tefillin is something that can be worn all day long. And if you're not going to wear it all day long, then at least when a person davens. But nowadays, the custom is to wear it only during Shachris. Yeah, but if a person didn't wear tefillin during Shachris, he can put them on any time during the day, and ideally, better when he's davening at Mincha. So I don't know to what extent tefillin are necessarily associated with a day or night. I mean, technically speaking, you could wear tefillin at night as well. We don't do that for a specific reason. Unlike tzitzis, where tzitzis, the mitzvah is specifically by day and not by night. You don't fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzis by night. Like it says, "Urisem oisoy," and you shall see it, the blue thread, or the mitzvah, or the mitzvah, right? So the time is for the mitzvahs at a time of the day that you can see it. At night, when you can't see it, there's no commitment, no obligation. It's not true regarding tefillin. But we don't wear tefillin at night for a different reason, because nighttime is the time when people kind of go to sleep, and if they had tefillin on, then they might the tefillin might become disrespected in that way. So I'm not sure to what extent tefillin are necessarily associated with Chesed or not, but certainly a tefillah is. And therefore, Shachris, which was instituted by Avram, is done specifically by day until midday. But from midday on, when Chesed is diminished and moves more and more towards the direction of Din, that becomes a separate time, a time for a separate type of prayer, which is that of Yitzchak. Like it says, Yotza, Yitzchak, the Suach Basodeh, Lifnos Erev. Yitzchak went out into the field to converse towards the evening. And therefore, that's the source for the idea that Yitzchak was involved with communing with God in the afternoon, evening time, before dark. And that corresponds to Din. Shahare Baboker, Nikshar B'Chesed B'Tfilaso. In the morning, he connects to the midah of Chesed with his prayer. Ubayom, and then during the day, B'Tiferes Besek Torah. He connects to the midah of Tiferes through his Torah learning. Ube'erev, but in the evening, meaning the afternoon, evening, B'Gvura. B'Gvura. Chesed and Gevurah. V'kol zeh b'midas yom. Shuba lebeis haKnesses liyached besod haGevurah kederach she'osa b'tzad Chesed. V'kol zeh b'midas yom. Shehu ba lebeis haKnesses. I would think perhaps he means to say kim midas yom. All of this should be done in the context of coming into the Beis HaKnesses, where he does the following: is miyached besod haGevurah. He connects and unifies himself with the midah of Gevurah, kederach she'osa b'tzad Chesed, like he did in the morning with the midah of Chesed. Yeah? So what's the pshat here? In the morning, when he's praying, he should have in mind that his prayers are in order to bring down bracha, blessing, and shefa, bounty to the world. In the afternoon when he prays, which is a time of din, he should have in mind that he's actually sparing himself, his surrounding, his community, his family, and the world from negative types of judgments and harmful things. And midday is generally viewed as a time where harmful forces start to have more of a sway over the world. So that, for example, apropos to the period that we're in now, the 3 weeks, the base of Mikdash is described as being destroyed specifically in the afternoon, towards the end of the day. The destruction took place. Or it's brought down, for example, in the Gemara, that when a person's sick, the sickness weighs more heavily on him in the afternoon. A person might be not feeling well, right? He wakes up in the morning feeling, decent. And then as the day progresses, right, he starts to feel more and more sick until he really feels bad by night. He goes to sleep in the morning, he feels okay again. Yeah? So this is also described as being that the forces of dinim in the world are weighing down upon a person and causing his weakness, and causing him to be more susceptible to his weakness, his spiritual weakness. And therefore, this is a time when the prayer should be directed, a person's prayer should be directed towards warding off negative forces, protecting a person from types of harmful things. And we find, for example, that the Gemara says, Eli HaNavi was only answered in Mincha. Lo ila mizar de betfilas Mincha, ki lo ne'ena Eliela ela betfilas Mincha. A person should always be very careful and meticulous with his prayer, the Mincha prayer, because Eli HaNavi was answered specifically at that time. What's that event talking about? The Jewish people at that time were steeped in idolatry. And there were Jewish priests of idolatry. And Eliyahu kind of invited them to a challenge. And his purpose was in order to convince the Jewish people to come back to the fold. So he appointed he made an appointment in Har Carmel that the priests of the Baal, these priests of idolatry of the Baal, should meet with him there on the top of the Carmel mountain, which is outside of Haifa, or on top of Haifa, or part of Haifa, however you look at it. And he said to them, each of us will call out to God, and the one who calls out to the true God, so his prayer will be answered, and a fire will miraculously come out of heaven and accept his sacrifice. So he says, you guys go first. You know the story? Yeah. So they build a pyre, and they put an animal on the pyre, and they start calling out to God, and of course, to their gods, and of course, nothing happens. So Eliyahu jeers and makes fun of them and says, hey, it's still early in the morning, maybe your gods haven't woken up yet. Shout out a bit higher, shout a bit louder. So they shout out a bit louder, and of course, there's no answer. So he says, maybe your gods are upset with you. You need to atone. Yeah, so they started gashing themselves and doing all types of forms of self-flagellation until they were oozing with blood. And basically, this went on until midday, and nothing happened. This was the time of Chesed. Then midday comes, and Eliyahu says, it's my turn. He orders a pyre to be built, and he orders a trowel to be buried, dug around the pyre. And then he orders barrels and barrels of water to come and poured on top of the wood and the pyre until they became waterlogged and soaked, and the whole moat became full with water. And then he said, Aneni Hashem, Aneni. 3 words, boom. Fire comes out of heaven, burns the sacrifice, burns all of the wood, right? Steam is evaporating from all of the water that's soaked around the wood, until the flames lap up the last drop of water until the moat, and then the whole thing's gone. Yeah? And the Jewish people are like, wow. Yeah? Until that time, Eliyahu said, how long are you going to be straddling the fence? That's the little term that's used there. That term comes from the Torah. Straddling a fence, he says. How long are you going to be straddling a fence? One leg here and one leg there. One leg to the idolatry and one leg to God. Look how clear the message is. Right? Hashem, Hu Elokim. When the people saw that, they cried out, and that's what they said. Hashem, Hu Elokim. Hashem, Hu Elokim. They cried out, Hashem, Hu Elokim. Which is why by the end of Yom Kippur, we say those phrases, and then we conclude by saying, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Shofar. Because throughout the year, a Jew may stray away from God, and his commitment to God might become adulterated, and he might become confused with interest in other things. But by the time Rosh Hashanah and the Esos Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Esos Yom Teshuvah, and Yom Kippur comes along, it becomes clear to him, right, that Ein Od Milvado, there's only God. At the pinnacle of that day, he cries out, Hashem Elokim, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So Eliyahu was only answered at this time. Why? Because the Jewish people were straddling the fence, and very horrible things were happening, plagues and droughts and other types of things. And Eliyahu came and prayed during this time of Mincha in order to nullify the dinim, nullify the reason for these negative judgments, which was their straddling of the fence. They're having doubt and inconsistency in their commitment to God. And he nullified all of that in order to protect the Jewish people from destruction and from an outbreak of tremendous damage that could have been brought to the Jewish people. So Eli Novi was prayed specifically from Mincha time in order to nullify these dinim. And usually we find that Mincha is the most difficult of the prayers to be committed to, specifically for this reason, because it's that time of the day that we straddle the fence. There's like this blurring between day and night, where things aren't so clear. I mean, it's true I have to daven, but I'm at work and I got this important stuff to do. It's true I've got to daven, but I got this phone call I have to make, Or it's true I have to daven, but my kids are home and they need help with the homework, and like all types of things happen. The first day, the beginning of the day and the end of the day is kind of like a no-brainer. All I have to do is get up and go daven. At the end of the day, so my day is coming to a close anyway, so I'll go to shul on my way home. Right? The real challenge is mincha. When it's like, we're in limbo between day and night, and uncertainty about, shall I be totally connected and extricate myself from what I'm doing, or should I not? So it's that time that a person has to exercise self-control, which is also Devorah, and connect to God through the prayer of mincha. Okay? Because Yachad B'Soda Devorah K'derech She'osa B'Tzadach Chesed. Uben Ze Leze, between these times of davening, shachris in the morning, and his afternoon prayer, which is in the afternoon, he should tie himself, Uben Ze Leze, kosher hashchina imo b'seudoso. He should tie the shechina to himself during his meal. What is it referring to? I guess the fact that a person davens shachris in the morning, mincha in the afternoon, sometime after shachris and learning Torah, he goes and eats something. Pat shachris, his daily bread, which a person is supposed to not eat right away. But what, by the third hour of the day, person should have hot shachris by the 6th hour of the day. That's midday. That's after davening and learning a bit, at least learning a bit. But it's specifically after davening. And you're actually not allowed to eat before davening. A person who wakes up is not allowed to eat. He's not even allowed to drink most things other than water until he finishes davening. The reason is because the Gemara says, Al tizbechu al adam. Don't sacrifice on the blood. And one of the explanations that the Gemara offers on that verse, and there are several, is don't offer sacrifice, meaning don't pray, which is in place of the sacrifices, and al tachlu al adam. I'm sorry, the pasuk is al tachlu al adam. It's talking about the Korban Pesach, and it says don't eat the Korban Pesach on the blood. And there's several reasons, several explanations of what that verse means. But the Gemara says al tachlu al adam, which means don't eat until you've prayed for your blood. Meaning, don't eat food before you've prayed to God for that sustenance. I have the food right here in front of me. No, but you're not allowed to partake of that until you pray to Hashem and thank Him for what you have, and also pray to Him that you'll be given more. And once you have taken care of your spiritual needs and addressed and expressed the fact that your food is dependent on God, then you can go ahead and eat from the food.
Now, is that praying Sukkos or just praying over the meal?
That's talking about praying in general, Shachris. Yes, Shachris.
So I don't have to pray morning prayer before having breakfast, but I should.
You're required to pray Shachris before eating, meaning you're not allowed to eat before Shachris. A person is allowed to eat before Mincha and Mariv, as long as he's going to have some reminder that he's got to pray, because being involved in the meal might cause him ultimately to forget that he's got to pray. You're allowed to do it with a reminder, but Shachris you're not allowed to eat at all before the prayer. And it's true that there are exceptions. I said you're not allowed to eat, allowed to drink. You're allowed to drink water. You're also allowed to drink things like coffee or tea, as long as there's no sugar. Although if we're going to talk halacha, some say that if you need the sugar to make the tea or the coffee palatable, then you're allowed to put sugar in it as well. So that you're not like indulging yourself by having sugar, you're just making the tea palatable.
It's for digestion or?
What, the tea, the sugar?
Yeah, I mean, no, tea and like coffee, like.
Well, to warm you up.
Oh, okay.
You're allowed to drink more than just water. You can have water with coffee or tea, for example. But you're not allowed to drink something, eat or even drink something which would be like indulging yourself before actually praying to God for your needs. I'm just saying it's brought down, if we're talking halacha, that even though sugar and sweet things would certainly be prohibited, but if it's doing it to make the coffee or tea palatable, you can do so, because you're not really doing it for the sweet drink, you're just using the sugar. And there are those who will extend, if we're talking halacha, that idea even further, and allow you to put milk in your coffee or tea with your sugar, because the milk makes it palatable. Why would a person do that? I think they say that coffee or tea is a, what's the term? Yeah, type of a stimulant, and it is important to relieve yourself, to have a clean body before davening. And therefore, there will be some who will be lenient on drinking coffee and tea with sugar and milk, even if it's a stimulant and helps them prepare themselves for a prayer. Stimulant is not the right word. Stimulant is not the right word, but there's a meaning. It stimulates that digestive. That is the last part of that digestive process. Yeah. So
Diuretic?
that's what I was looking for. I think. What was it?
Diuretic.
Diuretic. Is that for urine or for?
Urine.
Yeah. So this is not just urine. It's.
I think it could extend to both.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Number 2. Yeah. That's what we're primarily talking about. Number 2. All right. I think we're going to have to stop here in order to do the rest sufficiently. So we'll, Bezat Hashem, finish tomorrow then.